So things are heating up in the Ukraine right now. I took a look at a recent tweet from Christopher Miller, who stated, "The lieutenant colonel I've gotten to know well in recent months on the front line just texted me, 'Under fire, this is the end.'" So you don't really have to be a prepper to get prepared. Before we begin, this is not investment advice. I'm not your broker. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. But as far as stocks, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and the first Gulf War, large and small cap stocks actually outperformed, and the markets saw reduced volatility over regular times. Long term, as we know, the markets continued to rise despite ongoing wars. Bonds, however, were not a great choice, as war is typically inflationary. Now, we don't know how things are going to play out in Ukraine, so let's take a look at how the markets reacted in previous geopolitical conflicts. Now, as you can see, total market drawdown is not that extensive, at least for regional conflicts, with an average of a 5% loss in the S&P. Now, the Pearl Harbor attack, that had the biggest effect, which, by the way, was the only nuclear impact on the chart. That created an almost 20% total drawdown of the market. U.S. terror attacks, 11.6 drop. Cuban Missile Crisis, 6.6 drop. Again, an average of these events created only a 5% drop in the markets. That said, markets have never been where they are today, with already high inflation, multiple bubbles, and the highest debt in history. In fact, 40% of all money in existence today was created over the last 12 months. But that is a topic for another day. Obviously, there's multiple ways this can play out, ranging from a regional short-term conflict, could be hopefully over very soon, to full-blown World War III. But even a minor escalation is likely going to serve to disrupt already strained supply chains and increase the price of gas, furthering inflation. So the first top investment, this is not just prepper talk, is to have some extra supplies and food on hand if these supply chains are further disrupted. A huge bag of rice, it's going to keep for years. Dried beans and legumes, same thing. Vitamin C tablets, canned goods, they're cheap, and right now they are readily available. Now, even if nothing happens, you've probably saved money, as these prices are going to rise anyway. And if food chains are impacted, you're going to have it on hand. You're going to eat it anyway. Now, the more you can store, the better. Most people only keep a few days of food in their home. I say better safe than sorry. Other essentials like toilet paper, prescription refills, and liquor, all good ideas in the event of a war. Number 2, gold and or silver. Gold has shot up almost $100 an ounce over the past few days. Some predict it's going to break $2,000 shortly. Some suggest $7,000 an ounce gold is a possibility given the current inflationary trend. I know a lot of people like silver. I like silver as well, but in the event you have to relocate quickly, it's much easier to travel with gold than it is for silver. It's very heavy and cumbersome. Now, if you don't want to hold physical gold, you can also look at mining companies or even gold ETFs. A 1 kilogram bar right now is currently about $64,000, and it's easier to store than a lot of coins. But in the event you need to barter or even bribe your way across a border, a huge bar isn't going to do you much good. Number 3 is Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin has actually gone down quite a bit since this Ukraine situation, sitting at a low of just over $35,000 right now. It's going to be interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts. This is the first time we've ever seen this happening for crypto. But why might Bitcoin actually be a good investment in wars? Now, as we've seen recently, the safety of banks has come into question, with the U.S. seizing billions from Afghanistan and just reallocating it to third parties, billions in Russian funds. Even people who are not directly associated with the Russian government, they've had billions frozen by the U.S. government and U.S. banks. And recently here in Canada, the government seized bank accounts of protesters that they did not like. Now, you might be on the side of the government who likes you today, but what about in the future? Now, Bitcoin, even just a small amount, could provide the ability in the future for you to buy things if you get frozen out of the economy for any reason. Also, if there's a run on banks, which has happened and is likely to happen at some point in the future as well. It's also easier to carry a zip drive with your cryptocurrency on it than wads of cash or metals if you have to travel. Number 4 is Russian stocks. Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but if you're of the opinion that this might de-escalate quickly, and it might, and let's hope so, there are definitely bargains to be had in the Russian markets. Now, the stock market in Russia obviously has tanked since the Ukraine situation. The MOEX exchange has actually suspended trading. Now, ETFs like the Van Eck Russian Fund, as an example, they've taken a nosedive, which may signal bargains to be had. That said, if things escalate, these are likely to drop even further. Now, Van Eck, they hold mining, oil and gas companies, and we all know where the price of oil and gas are likely to go in the future. Number 5, defense stocks. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Obviously, if war escalates on the global stage with U.S. involvement, defense stocks are going to be a strong play. General Dynamics or Northrop Grumman, they're just a couple of players in the space. You can also find a number of aerospace and defense ETFs listed. Number 6, if you think things are really going to get bad, an underground bunker might be a good investment. Atlas bunkers, they're the best known in the space. Prices have been fluctuating wildly right now due to the cost of steel and inflation, but entry-level bunker kits are going to run you about $50,000 plus installation. And finally, number 7, while it's not an investment, holding cash on hand is always smart if the war escalates. Now, most people, myself included, we're used to just swiping a card to pay for everything. We don't even think about it. It's second nature. But if banking is disrupted, you might be in a cash-only situation very quickly. Now, in the event of a nuclear EMP, electromagnetic pulse, and some suggest a single EMP detonation would shut down most of the electrical grid in the USA instantaneously. Now, a report from Stanford states a successful EMP attack on the U.S. could lead to nationwide blackout of the electric power grid and a shutdown of critical infrastructure reliant on the grid, including, but not limited to, communications, transportation, food and water supply, and sanitation. Such a shutdown could last as long as a year, and without such critical infrastructure, a large fraction of America could die from starvation, disease, or the effects of general societal collapse. Peter Pry, who's an EMP expert, suggests 90% of the U.S. population would likely eventually be wiped out in an EMP situation. And these are relatively easy to build, and Russia has these on hand. In fact, they're the leader on the global stage with this type of technology. Now, others, admittedly, they disagree with this claim, saying it's mostly overstated, but either way, holding some cash on hand in the case of an emergency is never a bad idea. And you know what? It's also handy for your gangster posts on Instagram. How do people make money from silver using arbitrage? That link is above. Is an ATM business a good idea? That link is down below. Now, everybody except Joe Biden, hit that red button. Thanks for watching.